effective fiscal consolidation with the primary balance on commitment basis reducing by over 4 percentage points of GDP in 2023 relative to 2022. The fiscal performance for 2023 is presented within the context of the revised 2023 overall deficit on commitment basis, which has a target of 5.7% of GDP, with a corresponding primary deficit of 0.5% of GDP. On cash basis, the revised 2023 overall deficit target was 6.4% of GDP. Overall budget deficit on commitment basis was 31.5 billion Ghana cedis, 3.7% of GDP, compared to the mid-year budget target of 49 billion Ghana cedis, 5.7% of GDP. Primary balance on commitment basis was a deficit of 2.2 billion Ghana cedis, 0.3% of GDP, which was an improvement over the deficit target of 4.1 billion Ghana cedis, 0.5% of GDP, and a significant improvement from the deficit 4.3% of GDP recorded in 2022. The overall budget balance on cash basis was a deficit of 28 billion Ghana cedis, 3.3% of GDP, which is much lower than the target of 55 billion Ghana cedis, 6.4% of GDP, and down from the deficit of 10.6% of GDP recorded in 2022. Primary balance on cash basis was a surplus of 1.4 billion Ghana cedis, 0.2% of GDP, which is an improvement compared to the deficit target of 10.1 billion Ghana cedis, that is 1.2% of GDP, and the deficit 3.2% of GDP recorded in 2022. Mr. Speaker, provisional data on government fiscal operations for the first half of 2024 indicates that revenue mobilization and expenditure execution were broadly in line with the target, resulting in an overall budget deficit on commitment basis of 21.3 billion Ghana cedis. This corresponding primary balance on commitment basis was a deficit of 2.3 billion Ghana cedis, that is 0.2% of GDP, compared to the deficit target of 2.4 billion Ghana cedis, also 0.2% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, the overall cash budget deficit was 36.1 billion Ghana cedis, 3.4% of GDP, compared with the deficit target of 35.2 billion Ghana cedis, 3.3% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance on cash basis was a deficit of 17.1 billion Ghana cedis, 1.6% of GDP, compared with the period target of 8.8 billion Ghana cedis, 0.8% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, total revenue and grants for the first half of 2024 amounted to 74.7 billion Ghana cedis, 1.9% below the target of 76.1 billion Ghana cedis. Despite the shortfalls, the outturn shows a nominal year-on-year growth of 24.6% and constitutes 42.3% of the budget's total revenue for the year. The revenue performance was mainly driven by the strong performance in non-oil tax revenue and non-oil non-tax revenue, which partly offset the shortfalls in oil receipts for the period. Mr. Speaker, total expenditures commitment amounted to 95.9 billion Ghana cedis, below the budget target of 104.8 billion Ghana cedis.